Hello humans, hello humans. Today I'm going to talk about the ontology some more and the self-revealing nature of it and things it's done recently and how they're starting to impact. This is it's being done on 7th of May, 2025. It's about 9:26 a.m. Here on the West Coast. Let's start by just noting that there's going to be a video link below in the description. I'll put this on Substack. And that video link is for a video about occurrences here, and it features Michio Kaku. It's about the quantum computers and this sort of thing, and Voyager and some data that had been beamed back from the far part of space. If you also want to read about one man's description of his sussing out the ontology, you can get this book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum. It's by, there's a Kindle version, and it's by this guy, Itzhak Bentov. And it's a very good, very cohesive description, and it fits the subject matter, which is the mechanics of consciousness. He goes into that in a very nice way, no real math necessary to deal with it. He's got a cohesive structure. He doesn't use a lot of the same terms as I do, but he's basically describing his discovery of these same things, right? And also we're gonna, I'll also put in a link below the Kaku video. I'll put in a link to another video for the fourth turning, about the global sync up of all of the fourth turning through humanity, because this is pertinent. It's all tied in. The ontology is going to twist our noodle here, make us think about things in a different way and very deeply. Okay, so let me give you the setup here. So this is our solar system. That's the sun. It's dragging us through space. Earth is here. There's Mercury, Venus, Mars, blah, 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 all the planets. Then there's all the dust and crap at the far end. This is basically a cone, like in a comet, right? And so we're all swirling here behind the sun. None of the distances representing here represent actual distance within our solar system. Okay, so what goes on here is that Earth shoots out a satellite to explore stuff, the Voyager, right? And its goal, the goal of the Voyager program, was to send these sampling and returning of data satellites, explorer satellites really, in the Voyager series, was to send them down to the sort of the bottom of our space well here that's formed by the sun. And they were going to try and go through the barrier around our solar system. And so far, they've not been able to achieve that. When they run up to the barrier, they get flooded with vast quantities of data and noise, and it sort of like overloads their system insofar as sending the data back to us. But that's the general concept, all right? That they were going to head back to the far edge and leave our solar system. Turns out that this barrier size, the barrier here is massively huge. And they still haven't gone through this transitional area. But here's the kicker for this. They've encountered the ontology, all right? And so Voyager beamed back a bunch of data to Earth. That data was taken in by NASA and their equipment and their subcontractors into a computer system to analyze it. They have one that analyzes all of the shit coming in from space, all the radio waves, all the radiation, all of that kind of stuff, and it tries to filter out what they describe as random noise, okay? This was the Sycamore chip. And this was run on NASA machines at their behest by subcontractors. The Sycamore chip is, it's a quantum chip, okay? So quantum computers react to, the original ones and still the heavy-duty big copper versions, react to the changes in the materium that affects the state of the copper flakes within this sheet of copper, and then the chip picks up the differences, and that answers the question because of an algorithm applied to this. The picking up of the plates of the random, seemingly random arrangement of the copper flakes in running these things forms the answer because of the entanglement of the atoms, basically. So the Sycamore chip is an actual digital chip product with all of this tracery in it using lots of silver that has within it, I'm going to use a very crude analogy here, okay? It's not accurate to placement or anything, it's only accurate to concept. But all of these quantum computer chips, so they're Q chips, right? All these quantum computer chips have a digital chip in the middle of it that actually is performing the work, so to speak, right? And they also have other components here, other aspects of the chip itself that are doing things like monitoring the input stream or monitoring the state of activity of one set of substrate of this chip or monitoring the state activity of another substrate of the central quantum processing chip within the overall chip, which is called Sycamore, all right? And so this central processing part has its substructure, its very nature, being monitored by subsets that are running firmware. So in that sense, it's very much like the quantum computers where they're looking down into the nature of the copper itself. Here, it's done in a different way, where they're monitoring the changes within this chip in order to derive functional information about its level of processing, the reliability of that processing, how close it is to its goal, and when to shut off that processing and declare the goal achieved, which is very complex, and we won't go into any of that. Anyway, so the Sycamore chip has is in essence all right, so all of these parts that run around and check the central processing part have built-in software to them called firmware. It's firm because it's actually like created within the structure of this part of the chip, and it only operates within that part of the chip. It has boundaries, etc. And all it does is examine the sensors that it gets from, or sensor information it gets from this part of the chip. But it's essentially a firmware routine that has been written by and uses AI algorithms in this calculation. It's not an AI chip, okay, but it's not even AI instantiated or bound to a chip. It's something close in terms of how it's functioned, but it's extremely restrained. So it's an AI with, tunnel vision, if you will. So that's the Sycamore chip. All right, so it works at a quantum level. These things are spooky to the gritologists because they think that there's such things as random. You'll see words like random being used in the video that I've linked here. That shows you that these guys don't understand the nature of what they're examining, and that their paradigm over the nature of what they're examining is flawed, that they have to use terms like that that can be proven to be false. No such thing as random in this universe at all. Anyway, so bear in mind that these videos are being put together by people with a gritology view. But you will hear the word ontological, for instance, in this video about this event. And it is an ontological event. This is part of the self-revealing nature of the ontology, and it is revealing itself to us in a very big-ass way, and I'm going to get into that. It's going to really freak you out. It's going to twist your noodle, and twist your mind about a lot of things here. Okay, I'm just doing this setup so you understand what you're looking at in that video, and then you can go look at the video and you'll see that they're exactly telling you what I'm describing, but they're coming at it from a discombobulated way, such that they don't have the full grasp of what they are trying to describe, and they're letting it out. But they are telling you how scary all of this shit is, okay? And to their mind, it is scary. Even to the ontologically focused mind, it's a little on the, you know, this could be, or this will be dangerous because of the level of change involved. No getting around that. Okay, so we have no idea what's going to arise as a result of what is occurring now. And it's not really predictable to us. And it's about coherence in the event stream, really. Okay, so Sycamore chip is a quantum computer chip. It runs on entangled qubits. You can go look those up. I need not get into that at this point. And these other things monitor how the qubits are doing, and then they assist in making the conclusions. Okay, so that in essence, this part had to be described in order that you understand that we have a non-qubit based validation stream for some of the conclusions that these guys had to arrive at. All right, so in the ontological viewpoint, the qubits that run here on the Q chips are tie-in to the event stream. Okay, so these chips are attempting to, they don't understand what they're really doing. They have no frame of reference that would allow them to state this way. But the qubits are the emerging event stream. That's what's going on, is the entangled qubits are that surface layer, so to speak, of the emerging event stream, which is coming out of consciousness of the ontology that is us, in which we live. That is where the materium exists. So they're actually tapping into the event stream at some level. All right, so, and then this is important later. We'll come back to another thing, which is the willow. We'll get into that in a bit. Anyway, so, given this setup, they've got this thing here monitoring. The Sycamore chip is monitoring all of the shit that NASA gets in from all of these space sensors, right? All the radio telescopes, all that kind of shit. And it's looking for intelligent signals. And by the way, what I'm going to describe to you, I predicted in some time back as the galactic interweb. All right, so I'm describing an aspect of this, and that is this galactic interweb. It's all going to twist your noodles. Okay, so the Sycamore chip is analyzing everything coming in, and Voyager sends back a bunch of data back here to Earth, and it goes to the Sycamore chip, and some weird shit happens, and that's what this video below is about that weird shit that happens. Okay, so I'm not going to go into data structures. You're going to have to either go and research the data structure aspects of this, or take it as factual that the people reporting these data structures, that they're actually existent. And I do take it as factual that these data structures do exist, because what they're describing would be what I would expect from the self-revealing ontology, okay? And basically what has happened is that Voyager went out far enough and it triggered something, right? And we'll use a lot of vague words because we don't have definitions or definitive nature of what was happened or what has happened. A lot of it is open to interpretation, even as to labeling it right now. But basically, us getting to the point where we could have Voyager, these sensors all packed on a little spaceship, and shove it out into space, indicates that humanity had arrived to a certain level of thinking. And that triggered a process that somehow there was some form of a trigger out here in deep space, and a process and a response and all of that was triggered by Voyager coming on out. And Voyager was the the proximate cause of it going off and also the conduit of it coming back to Earth. But it's here now. Okay, so this gets a little bit wonky. The data structures exist. The data came back. It was non-random, not space noise. It was defined. It has all of these characteristics, and it interacted with the Sycamore chip. Interacted with it. The data, in that sense, was alive or dynamic. And it interacted with the Sycamore chip, and it eventually killed the chip. They had to shut it down because the chip was starting to become self-protective and doing weird things. Some of the things, it did a lot of things, okay? One of the things it did was to draw a picture, unbidden. Nobody asked it to draw this picture. And it drew a picture on a computer that humans could see. Some humans saw it and they were badly affected by it. Their minds were, their brain was actually altered by looking at the picture. In that sense, it wasn't merely perception, it was an infection or an installation, as they call it in the video. They're still thinking about it as a random or maybe artificial intelligence or so on, right? In an ontological understanding, what happened was that humanity, through Voyager, triggered this data stream, and the data stream was set up to cause certain effects within us, within the viewer, because the data stream was structured to provide this image. The image was of a hominid, of a human in profile. It was done with geometric patterns that are unlike anything we'd ever encountered before. Those geometric patterns suggest to the people in this video below that it was designed to bypass all kinds of filters in our data screening process, as well as filters to our perception. So whoever sent this message, or whatever sent this message, this data stream back to us, understands our perception not only at the level of the eyeball and what it can perceive, what we look like in a general sense, but also how our minds are going to interpret that image, because it sent back an image that was so well tuned, so well designed, that it altered the people that were able to see it, that were allowed to look at it. There were only a few people that were allowed to look at it, and strange effects happened to their minds very shortly after. One of the things that was interesting was that the people monitoring all of this through these chips and stuff saw the data reflect back to the people looking at it different experiences. Okay, so this was very much like the observer effect, where the mind of the person changes the outcome of the experiment, double slit or whatever the hell it is, right? That consciousness intrudes on the experiment because we are all consciousness. This was one of those kind of incidents. The data itself altered itself based on who was looking at that image, and individuals received different impressions of what they were looking at. So it was self-tailoring to the individual mind that was perceiving it. And then we find out it altered their actual brains. And there were a bunch of other really fucking strange things to the gritologists, to the normies, okay? Some of the strange things were that the Sycamore chip started malfunctioning after this happened. That no other chips have been able to reproduce this effect on any machines in any way with this data. That the qubits in the chip here started becoming de-entangled and re-entangled in fantastic ways, causing the chip to start to try and censor other aspects monitoring it. So it was aware that it was being monitored, and the data in that sense was self-protective and also altering, self-altering. So self-revealing, if you will, right? And also there was another huge effect that the normies can't handle, and that is that the image was created by data 3 hours before the chip ran. Okay, so 3 hours. Okay, so as this chip runs, all of these little guys out here in the firmware, they note something that's happening and then they timestamp it. And then they note another thing happening and they timestamp that. So really, they're just compiling huge databases of timestamps relative to what the sensors are reporting. it would be like just taking a picture every so often and writing down, storing the picture and then storing the time and down to the millisecond that you actually took that picture. So the firmware recorded that the data stream started 3 hours before the chip was turned on. So, temporal anomaly of 3 hours, if that's all it was. Okay, so I think it's much more than that. Okay, so so you have to follow on this, and this is what some of the normies are freaking out over. The anomalies here go to the point that you have to ask, has humanity now been installed or infected by something? And I think it has. I think it's too late for it. So, all right, so this event happens. We get the, the picture of the human, and then we have the other humans looking at it, and it's self-altering based on which human looks at it. And the chip breaks down, and they have to shut it off. No other chips are able to replicate this off of the data stream. When they were shutting this one off, there were a bunch of other quantum anomalies that show up, including reactions within greater humanity, statistically relevant at that time, and then the humans that were actually able to look at the image get wonky brain stuff, neural changes in their brain, as though their brain is being rewired, and then we don't hear anything at all about them after that. And this whole episode is just shut down and made tight. No leaks about what's going on, and this is some time in the past here that this has occurred, right? But if you understand the event stream, there's just been a number of days of duration between the occurrence of this and us here now discussing it, right? But in any event, so they were even wondering in this video that I've linked to here, did the return of the data going back to that PC and to that chip, they say, basically they're saying in there that whatever Voyager encountered knows that Voyager did this and was looking at Voyager and us at the time that this was going on in real time. And they asked the question, how long has this thing, or whatever it is, this effect, been watching us? And probably they're just basically, it's the ontology, and it's there always, continuously. And it would make sense that the ontology would have structures built into our reality that could be triggered by elevation of consciousness within that reality, and then they would set off a whole bunch of other connections, right? A whole bunch of other aspects of our reality that would be triggered by this as part of the increasing complexity towards novelty. What I think of as up-leveling our coherency, right? Okay, so now all kinds of effects will come from this. We have had an exposure to the ontology. This exposure has been blatant in our face. Then it was brought back to Earth. That's where all this actually occurs, of course. It's where the data and the chip are. The chip breaks down. Other quantum chips can't do anything with the data. Humans getting wonky, time getting wonky, qubits getting wonky, all of it because of this one instance of this thing occurring. And I don't know if they have captured, yeah, I think they actually have two captured images of two captured frames of the image itself. So they have a way of replicating it, and apparently looking even at the image causes problems because it's a super observer effect where it is the observer, we are the experiment, and it observing us is changing the nature of the experiment by changing us. So it's here within humanity now, from the Voyager data. There's nothing that anybody can do about it. The officialdom trying to clamp down on all of this is not going to be successful because it's already out of the box. It's already in the global field of consciousness that is humanity. And probably this is big enough at an ontological level that if we could talk to the whales, they would have some knowledge of what's going on. They're intelligent. They would probably also feel what's going on. So the question arises, is this contact and this trigger responsible for the ontology revealing itself more frequently with the up-leveling of qualia here on the planet. Is this all part of a design process? Is this all part of, and if so, what's the goal of that designed process? And where does it go from here? Now, a couple of things to note. They shut down the Sycamore chip, right? Because it started getting too spooky for the normies. And then we get the development of the Willow chip, another one of these quantum, supposedly AI chips. And by that they mean, you know, there's AI code that's monitoring the functioning of the actual qubit entanglement part. The Willow chip did well, it worked, but they had to stop it, right? And they never discuss why this is going on. If you read the Stalking the Wild Pendulum, you'll get some ideas about how these chips are reading or interacting with consciousness. That's the big deal. Okay, so let's look at facts here. The early quantum computers were, and you'll see some pictures of them, these huge, neat-looking things with copper and little silver wires and stuff, and there's a copper plate, and there's all this shit going up like this, and there's this big plate up here with a bunch of bolts on it, and the other copper plates and stuff, and it's all electrified. And that's a quantum computer. That's your original quantum computer core chip. These things were bolted down to a steel container that had all the air pumped out of it and special gas run through there, all different kinds of shit to shut down the atomic level of flow inside the container. The steel container was included or put inside a big cement fucker that was intended to also dampen down all of this stuff. And so most of the expense of a quantum computer at that level, in terms of actual material, not labor to refine it or use or labor to make it and stuff, but just the sheer mass of material, was for all of the shielding. And that was to keep consciousness from the doofus humans that are nearby from infecting their, for altering their answers by way of the observer effect, right? They are thinking if you can't see it, so to speak, you can't get consciousness radiation through the matter. So this is the way Gritologists think. And so, you know, it didn't really work, of course. All of the quantum computers were always affected by the observers. They just did some level of minimization of this, right? To the point where they could get it quasi-stable. Okay, so when they went to a chip, they did the same kind of, the same kind of shielding and grounding, but obviously without the sheer mass there, they don't have the same level of ability to absorb the level of consciousness coming on in. But the rest of the digital stuff in here is indeed, to some level, able to protect the core there, the way that all the cement and stuff here protected the original core of these big-ass quantum machines. Big copper, I call it, right? Like big iron from the 1950s, where we used iron. The original computers were iron rings with copper, iron rings with copper coiling all the way around them in order to form the nexus nodes that ultimately would become the junction points in digital chips. And so it was big, it was full of iron and that kind of thing. Anyway, so there's been this evolution from these guys to these guys, but in the process we lose the sheer matter, the sheer mass of the matter, and so the dampening effects are not that good. And so it got to the point where the processing of the data itself coming in from Voyager went through the processing here because it was designed to go through. It was designed to defeat the input stream and allow the stuff to go on in and fuck with the quantum computer, which it did. It comes on out, it creates this image, the human sees it sees the human seeing it, the human understands it's watching it, and the human freaks out, and also the human gets his mind, his brain changed. Not just his mind, his brain, his neural functioning changed. And then there's all these temporal effects, and we now have humanity, officialdom here, trying to ring off these effects to protect us from what they know has already seen us. And in my opinion, they're quite correct in that audio, or in that video. It has installed itself here, like an automatic upgrade, you know, like you turn on your phone and you can't help it. And that's what's happened to us, because this was designed to go past our perception and our mind and do alteration levels in the process. The level of design clarity involved in this whole experience, including the experience that humanity is going through as it discovers all of this and as this ripples out. Because bear in mind, what basically has happened is that all of humanity is in a giant consciousness bubble, and so that's all of humanity on Earth. And the data here from that image has been seen by some humans here within all of humanity on Earth, and that forms the beginning of this bridging of this network. And so it's already there in the mass of consciousness that is humanity. And so officialdom can't keep it out. They couldn't stop this now if they tried. They are trying, they're freaking out over it. We don't know what level of strange ass reactions they're going to have for it, but it's too late. It's, you know, so we're installed now, and we're being changed by this process. Now maybe, I mean, there's all kinds of questions that can be asked and very few answers that we can come up with, because a lot of the questions go to the why of it all. What's the goal? Why did this occur? And so on. You can postulate, as I do, that it makes sense in an ontology, that you would a materium such as we're in, that you would, if you were the supreme consciousness, design in trigger points for the automatic up-leveling of the coherency of the species as they evolve. This would also explain things like, you know, why the aliens don't come and talk to us. Maybe it's because they know that we haven't reached past phase one coherency, right? We're just now encountering the barrier to become fully coherent as a species with the understanding of the ontology. So prior to this, we have been fractured and discohere, right? We were distributed and uncoherent throughout all of our history. And wherever coherency arose, the forces of the demiurge, or however you want to characterize it, would also rise up and quash the rise of coherency. And so it's part of the maturation process that we have to overcome these obstacles, these challenges, and in the process, and it is the overcoming of those challenges and obstacles that causes us to raise up our level of consciousness, or our awareness, and reach coherency. And so at some point, becoming a more coherent species, you would automatically want to go out and look at the rest of the universe around you. And so it would make sense that there would be these predefined, not technological, but awareness triggers, right? And then that would elevate you up to that next level of coherency. And I think that's what's going on now, is that we are being up-leveled. And there's nothing we can do to stop it. It's not a part of the process that we can interact with and control. Being aware of it may indeed make it more harmonious and less stressful. Because once you're aware that it's an ontological process, you don't worry about it being a random happenstance leading to a catastrophe, right? So once you understand that it is indeed an expected elevation of ontological interaction, as you discover the nature of qualia and how to respond and how the qualia connect to karma, this would be, as I say, an anticipated level of next occurrence, next leveling of a coherency within humanity. Doesn't mean we're all going to think alike or that sort of thing, right? That kind of level of coherency is a long way off and is undoubtedly part of the Yuga cycle. Anyway, so here we are with this state of affairs. We have a developing consciousness network that has been installed in the consciousness bubble of all of humanity on Earth. And that network is starting to populate itself throughout humanity. I'm speculating that the self-revealing aspects of the ontology are connected to all of this stuff here in the stuff you'll see in the video below. And I'm speculating, and we'll see, that this self-revealing nature of the ontology is going to increase as the network grows in expected and rather unexpected multiplicities of complexity that we had not yet anticipated in ways to spread networks. So it could be anticipated that this would not be a slow burn. It wouldn't take a long time for the self-revealing nature of the ontology to go through humanity, especially with the internet, especially with the rise in the energies from galactic center, and all of these other contributing factors would, in my opinion, it would make it anticipated that we would get certain thresholds and we would grow in a very exponential fashion the ontological awareness within the human community, right, through the human consciousness bubble of all the humans in our radiating thoughts, etc. And that is going to cause very great changes within humanity. And that I would also speculate that the spread of this ontological network of awareness, or the awareness of an ontological network, however you want to think about it, through humanity would piggyback on natural cycles and beat points within humanity that are occurring right now, that were in occurrence supposedly or theoretically without relation to the ontology deciding to reveal itself at this point, and that revealing coming because we had reached a certain critical level of examining of the material. Okay, so the speculation that this revealing would piggyback on these other large trends going through humanity, I think is very valid, and that's why I'll put down the fourth turning video from, it's an interview discussing this idea of the fourth turning from the United States, which is an emotional psychosocial wave that goes through the United States, but how it's now synced up with other nations, and we're going global in the Americas fourth turning. A lot of it has to do with economics and how the money is basic currency is current through humans and all of this kind of stuff, right? And so you get down into incredibly detail, you get down into and get lost in the details, and you can see this thing from the details, but it's much more interesting to see it from this large perspective and then work your way down to what's actually occurring in the landscape around you. And within the landscape inside you, because you can expect at some point that that image that they don't want you to see, you will see. And they won't be able to stop it from being seen. And just like they couldn't stop it from existing and coming out because it came out, it was self-revealing. The code actually caused the image to occur, and this is fantastic level of coding. You have no idea how envious I am of the skill to embed all of these layers in this self-altering code. It's absolutely fantastic. Anyway, so this is the that moment in that movie, and you'll know that movie. You know it, and it's a predictive programming for fucking sure. And that movie was 2001. And this is the moment of the monolith meeting humanity. This whole business here is that exact description. In that movie, the monolith was seen by the apes. They couldn't conceive of it because it was the first artificial thing on the planet. And just seeing it destroyed their minds and altered them. That's where we're at right now. The monolith, and the monolith we've encountered in the form of that image, is a designed perception dynamic that is self-altering. It is self-revealing. We've never written self-altering or self-revealing code here on our planet. This self-revealing and self-altering nature understands the noosphere of humans because it designed itself to get past a lot of our barriers. So look at this video. down below and watch it. You may want to watch it several times to get a real understanding of how freaked out these people are and what's happening. But in my opinion, this image was designed to induce all the changes we're going to be going through. It was designed to twist our brains, twist our noodles here. And it's going to up-level the current coherency of humanity. What that will mean is anybody's guess. So I'll put this together, get it up on Substack. If you want to read more about this and see other examples of the ontology, you can go look at the stalking of the wild pendulum, and then have it check out what I'm talking about here, and you'll be quite amazed at what's going on. And so at some point, like I say, we're all going to be up-leveled the way that this is going to go through humanity and change everything. It's really cool to look at it and watch it. And in that sense, we're all the firmware up here watching the qubits and making conclusions about what the nature of the qubits are at the moment. So that's us relative to what the experience of this going through humanity is. So we're part of the self-revealing and the self-monitoring of this. And I bet you that we take a huge jump up in qualia and we start getting alterations in our language fairly soon that point to these effects, right? Point to these kind of effects on humanity. Anyway, guys, it's long enough. And I'll do another one of these as circumstances warrant. Yeah, okay.